Journalism, I've been playing at it from the margins for a long while. Journalism is very much corrupted. It is not the media in the middle. It is in many cases, wittingly or unwittingly, partisan. It is part of the game that it says it's covering. Journalism is one of the failing institutions in this society, as much as universities.
Yeah, well, there's technological reasons for that. The journalism as such is under unbelievable pressure from the new technologies, YouTube, podcasts in particular, which of course have also vastly expanded what constitutes journalism. And so journalists are running scared. It's very difficult for them to find paying jobs. Their staffs are shrinking. The newspapers are in trouble. Television stations are vanishing. And so there's increasing desperation, I would say, as well as decreasing professionalism among those who still practice. And so some of it's the personal failings of the ideologues who happen to be occupying the positions that ideologues occupy, but some of it's a consequence of these transformations in communication technology that are so vast that they're actually inconceivable. And I think both YouTube and podcasts are great examples of that. Podcasts even more than YouTube, because YouTube serves billions of people, which is one walloping network.
Yeah.
But podcasts are maybe 10 times as popular. So and that's all underground. It's interesting because they don't attract as much attention, or as much controversy. Maybe because they're more siloed in some sense. But the journalists are fighting a losing game, and I think as you fight a losing game, I've seen this happen with corporations, you lose your best people first, and then the death spiral begins, and I think we're seeing exactly that, and then that's exaggerated by this proclivity to polarization that also might be part and parcel of the technological changes.
Okay, let me sweep back to that other word, nerve. I know, because I follow you, how deep your respect and attention to Alexander Solzhenitsyn is. If he'll have a hero, obviously he is it. Now in the Soviet Union, if Solzhenitsyn writes a small note or something, he gets tossed off into a gulag for 9 years or more. If a man looks the wrong way in China, he can be put in some damn camp, and in Korea we won't even go into it. In those countries, if you want to say something, even if it's merely innocuous, you really have to have courage. Solzhenitsyn should be called Stalin. He had to steal. Over here, we have a trans activist group. Let's name the one that's in the thing. And you almost innately know that this is absurd. And you say, well, I don't think I'm going to say that's absurd. What are we afraid of? We fight wars and say we gave all our soldiers deaths, that we would preserve democracy and freedom of speech. There is no loss if you decide to challenge in terms of any contrast with the totalitarian systems, where if you said something, you really did pay a price. Worst thing you can do over here is lose a job.
Well, you can be hauled in front of quasi-judicial tribunes as well, and I mean, they're certainly willing to do that. I think the human rights tribunals should, in my opinion, they should be obliterated.
They're a travesty.
Yes, we're setting up these quasi-judicial inquisitions in all sorts of institutions.
And ideologically constituted, because I read the biographies of some of the people who are appointed to them.
Yeah.
And no one can be a judge in their own cause. And in this context, it's the cause people judging the causes.
Yeah. Precisely.
But I
look what's happening in British Columbia with this case. What's the person's name?
Jessica or Jonathan? I prefer Jonathan.
I think we'll go with Jonathan, and we'll see if they'll haul us in front of the Ontario Human Rights Commission.
We will go together.
Good. That would be too much to bear, undoubtedly, but it would be interesting.
But no, he's got 16 people. A good portion of them are immigrant women.
Yeah.
He is insisting that they wax his penis and testicles. If he's got hair on the first, it's a bit of a worry. And he's got 16 of them under charge. And I asked the question, if 16 people are of this mind and one person is of this, which is the more likely to be off?
Yeah, well, it seems irrelevant. And I mean, it's a consequence, One of the things I pointed out with Bill C-16 was that it contained multiple internal contradictions, especially in the background policies, which I had read in quite a bit of detail. They were formulated in Ontario. Although the federal government removed the link on their website to those policies after I pointed out the fact that that link existed, which I thought was unbelievably underhanded and still believe so. But Carl Jung once said that internal contradictions are played out in the world as fate, is that the thing about propositions, if they're accurate, is that they represent real states of being in the world. And if you entertain a set of propositions that are internally contradictory, then you're going to run yourself into all sorts of sharp objects and dead ends. And that's exactly what's happening. And it every time, and I've thought this really for 3 years, every time you think that there's no possible way that this can get more absurd, then one more example comes up where it's more absurd. And I would say the situation in BC is precisely that. I mean, one of the women that he's persecuting, because I think he and this terrible bureaucracy is persecuting, was an immigrant woman, I believe she was Muslim, who had an aesthetics business in her own home, and as a consequence of the negative publicity, or the publicity and the pressure, she shut down her business. And God only knows what that means for her family, and